Oh, you sing over here as well?
Yeah.
What? What's happening here?
New studio.
Yeah, this is a bit cosy. Hang on, I'm going to take a picture. All right, folks, this is going to be on Twitter later. Check it out.
Yeah. Obviously, this works great. It's like classic radio, isn't it?
This is classic radio. We should get a webcam in here. No, but that would be pointless because
we
really shouldn't. No. Let's see the lurid T-shirts that we're wearing today. Hang on. Hey, classic. Oh, hang on. Can't use his phone.
Can't use his phone. Yeah.
There we go. Hey. Oh, classic radio. That. Yeah. There you go. Oh. Yes, I do look uncomfortable. Right.
Don't usually edit the start of the show, but actually in this case,
no, I leave this in.
In this particular instance, it might be because if you're listening, you're sat there thinking, "What the
okay
is going on?"
So basically, we're sat on a sofa together, recording the show side by side, which is anyway. So what have we got this time?
We have got the Pixies, Indie Cindy, Lily Allen, Sheezus, Damon, Albarn, Everyday Robots, Paul Heaton, What Have We Become, Anastacia, Resurrection, and I've missed something, haven't I, already?
Kelis?
And Kelis, or Kelis.
Kelis.
And Food.
Right. Kelis.
But we shall start off with the return of the Pixies, who got back together again about 10 years ago now, I suppose.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that long?
But this is their first new album since 91's Trompe le Monde.
Right.
And yeah, so it's 23 years.
Is it?
Since the last album.
Since the last album. Right.
So, the question is, has anything changed since then?
So they've been back together 10 years?
Yeah.
And this is their first album?
Yep.
Right, okay, cool. Good.
Yeah, I've just been, cashing in on the old material.
I'm glad one of us does the research. Right, what do we think? Okay. Pixies fans are going to love this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It harks back to their classic sound.
Yes.
Whilst also doing something quite clever, incorporating some of the more sort of, I'm going to say modern rock, but you know what I mean, 21st century rock music. So it actually begins very rocky.
It certainly does.
Quite hard, with What Goes Boom, appropriately enough. But then we get to a couple of tracks in, we get to the likes of Greens and Blues and Bag Boy, and it's that classic kind of whiny indie song in the background. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sort of classic Pixies sound. It has its solid. It has its peaks and troughs. It took me a couple of listens at least. I think I listened to this one about 3 times.
Yeah.
Before I kind of really found my bass with it.
Yes.
Sorry. What do you think?
I can see where you're coming from. I think you get the problem, with any band that's doing a new record after so big a hiatus, if you like, is that if you're a fan, you're going to have ridiculously high levels of expectation, and if you like anything in life, if you have really high levels of expectation, they're usually disappointed.
Yes.
And the reviews for the album have been a bit kind of meh.
Yeah.
So it's in some instances it's got a bit of a kicking, which I think is a bit unfair actually. Because I think it's a better record than that.
Yeah, agree.
But partly because I probably wasn't expecting it to be much cop. I'd gone the other way. I'd gone the opposite way of thinking. Yeah. My expectation was that no, it's probably going to be crap.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it, as you said, it kind of recaptures the spirit of the band perfectly. The problem with that is, for good or bad, it does play like an album that could have been released in '92. It could have come out exactly a year after.
Yeah. So some of it certainly. I think there's a little bit more of a modern production.
Yeah, there is.
To it,
there is,
which probably gives that away. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but as you said, but it does. But by the same token, it doesn't feel out of place in today's soundscape, as you say.
Yeah.
But then again, that is also perhaps a kind of damning indictment of the dearth of interesting
Yes.
guitar-led rock music of the last 10 years as well.
Yeah.
As you say, What Goes Boom kicks off proceedings in classic kind of turn it up to 11 kind of styley, with Blue Eyed Hex later on the album, similarly kind of menacing track. I quite like the title track because it has the kind of spoken, ill-fitting lyrics, spiky verse, fading into a more kind of gentle chorus, which I like, which is very, very Pixies-like.
Yeah.
And also very similar to Swimming Pool Cues on their debut album. You mentioned Bag Boy, which I think does have quite a modern sound, actually. Cause I love the Cover Your Breath, Cover Your Teeth.
Yeah,
doing that, it's really kind of fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think overall, it's a pretty good record. Does slightly miss the absence of Kim Deal, who was original member of the band that's no longer in the band. I think her female vocal, especially backing vocals, I think is noticeably missing. But aside from that, yeah, I think it's I enjoyed it a lot because it's, as I said, better than I thought it was going to be. So.
Yeah, I agree. Takes a couple of listens, but I think I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we move on to the third album from Lily Allen. I can't remember if we reviewed the last album or not.
I don't think we did.
But the first album, all right, still. I can't remember. I know I didn't review the first album. And the first album, which is on Barrel Loads, I kind of loathed. I have to confess. But It's Not Me, It's You, which was the last album, which was 4 or 5 years ago now. 5 years ago. I actually really liked. I thought it was a really, really great record. Good pop songs and some interesting lyrics. And so now we've got this one, third album, and for me this kind of falls in between the two, really. It's a bit of a hodgepodge, musically, stylistically, and so for me it kind of its biggest failing is it fails to flow as an album, which as we spoke about previously might not be an issue in this day and age.
I don't think it is,
when
no.
It's people just talking about tracks and albums, not the point, as it were.
But we're traditionalists.
Yeah. So because of that, I find it annoying. But lyrically, I think no matter what else is going on, I think she still shines through. I think similarly to Robbie Williams, she has a very good, sly, slightly cynical but kind of quirky lyrical style, which appeals to me quite a lot. So on stuff like the title track, Sheezus, so I'm ready for all comparisons. I think it's dumb and it's embarrassing. I'm switching off, no longer listening. I've had enough persecution and conditioning, which is all about. And I like the idea of that. The whole thing that particularly female artists are always kind of in the press, kind of pitted against each other as being competing to be who's the kind of top thing.
I like the sort of the boxing ring analogy that went through there. Is all that they're all coming up for a prize fight with each other.
Yeah.
But pushed on by the labels and whatnot.
And also I like the kind of the piss take of the Kanye thing with the whole title of it, and it's a song that talks about periods as well.
Yeah,
which, hats off. Yeah. And so there's that, and there's on Insincerely Yours, it's kind of lines like I don't give a fuck about your Instagram or your lovely house and your ugly kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, which
is quite funny. And also on Silver Spoon when she's taking the piss out of people saying, that was where'd you come from?
Very self-depreciating.
Yeah, So I think lyrically, I think the album is still really, really strong and covers some interesting topics. So you got her privileged upbringing on Silver Spoon. You've got the stillbirth of her child on Take My Place. Finding her soulmate, as it were, on As Long As I Got You, which is probably the straightest.
And one or two other tracks sort of touch on the romantic side as well. And
Internet Trolls on URL Bad
Man.
Man.
I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah. and so I think when it's good, on tracks like Take My Place, Our Time, As Long As I Got You, Hard Out Here, which I think is the first single, which I really like a lot. I think it works well.
That reflects the lyrics around the tits and the balls as well. Yeah. So it reflects that whole adversarial. You've got to calm down, love, which she's sort of fighting back against.
So I think when it works
good
well,
for you, Ellie.
When it works well, I think it's good. But I think there's too much filler, and musically, I don't think the music is as good as the lyrics.
I think it's a great pop album. I would rate it higher overall than you've done. I agree with a lot of what you've said. In fact, I agree on almost all of it. Again, I think musically it's fine. It's a pop album. It's made when it's made, and I don't think it really matters that it sort of jumps from style to style. I don't think it jumps too wildly, but as you're saying, there isn't that sort of natural flow to it that you would get in other genres or other albums. It is very track by track by track. But there's enough in each track, I think, to keep you interested. Plus, I think the lyrics, it's that, as you say, Robbie Williams. It's that great sort of that great sort of ability of English pop singers, pop writers, to sort of look at topics, either personal topics, as Lily's done in some of the songs here, or wider stuff like URL Bad Man, which no doubt she's probably had some experience of as well, and sort of turn it into a clever pop song. And please admire me for getting through that without saying Neil Tennant. Thank you very much. So I ended the album at Hard Out Here. I didn't bother with the bonus track.
No. I tell you what. If you're not a fan of Lily Allen, the way to really appreciate how good this record is to start with the bonus track, which is her absolutely dreadful
nauseous
cover. Of somewhere only we know.
It made grown adults cry at Christmas.
It did, and actually, I can't believe I was saying this. It actually makes you appreciate the Keane version of it slightly more, which is really, really.
Yeah, but I don't want to get hung up on that. So I stopped the record after 12 tracks. I thought that's enough. That's perfect pop record.
Okay. Big tick for Lily then.
Big tick for Lily. You're going to ask me next what I think of Anastasia's Resurrection.
I am. The 6th album from Anastacia, and her first in 5 years. I mean, obviously she's battled cancer a couple of times in the last 10 years as well. And someone else that kind of really burst onto the scene when with her debut album back in 2000, and the worldwide smash of I'm Out of Love, which I seem to remember at the time was subsequently the kind of almost the de facto audition piece for any female on any talent show for about 4 years.
Yeah.
So this is the 6th album, first in 5 years. Anastacia.
Didn't like it.
Not at all?
No. Sorry. Didn't. First time, I think I've said this for a while, just didn't float my boat whatsoever. I actually found it very, very dull record to listen to, and I've had the privilege of seeing Anastacia performing live about 10 years ago, and she was fantastic. She blew the hall away, but no, I didn't maybe I didn't give it enough time, but
36 minutes long.
I know. Thanks. No, I just couldn't find my groove with this record at all. I appreciate the style. I appreciate, the songs and certainly her performance. It just personally, it wasn't for me. And in a way that I actually quite enjoyed the Lily Allen, even though it jumps around a lot record. I just couldn't find my way with this at all. Sorry.
Well, I like this more than you, but I can see kind of where you're coming from. I think obviously the key thing about Anastacia obviously is that unlike a lot of other artists out there, she does have a unique and distinctive voice.
Yes.
And so I think it's a perfectly fine record. I think some good tracks. I think Apologies is a quite strong ballad. I also didn't mind tracks Evolution and Pendulum. Notably, I think the best track on the album is Stupid Little Things, and I think it's perhaps no coincidence that my favourite all-time track of hers is Left Outside Alone, and this does kind of echo that somewhat on the chorus. And so the rest of it's a bit, it's fine. But what I do like about this record is I do think that it does sound like an album by a real artist.
Okay.
So by that I mean it's cohesive rather than so it sounds like it's an Anastacia album rather than here's a load of producers who've got Anastacia singing different ways on different tracks.
That's a very fair point, actually.
Which we've had a lot of recently.
Yeah,
so you don't spend,
and we have.
Yeah, so you don't spend the whole album constantly imagining every other faceless female singer of the last 10 years singing all the songs. So that I like about it. But I kind of agree with you in a sense that, having said that, it's a shame that the material is not good enough, really. Like I said, apart from those stupid little things, an apology and stuff like that, I don't think it's... I think her voice deserves better, even though she co-wrote most of the stuff as well. I think she's worthy of better stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of worthy...
Good link.
Yeah. The debut solo album from Damon Albarn, Everyday Robots. And I'm probably going to do 2 reviews for this album.
Okay.
Because I listened to it again this morning.
My word. Okay.
Yeah, I listened to it again this morning.
Yeah.
But I made some notes on it yesterday, and my opening comment when I was thinking about the whole thing was, my God, this is a spectacularly dull record.
Right.
But I say this with a caveat, and I think it's because of the nature of doing this podcast. I think it's safe to say the vast majority of our combined listenings are on the go.
Yes.
iPods, on phone, wherever, and not...
Wherever we happen to be.
Yes, and not, as we are currently, sat on a sofa, kicking back, chilling, kind of listening. I think this album suffers from that, and I think it's a record that you really need to be in a kind of, a Neil Young, Jarvis Cocker kind of sitting down and actually listening to the album, as opposed to experiencing the album whilst on the go.
There's other distractions. Yeah.
So I apologise for Damon for that. So I suspect this album may actually be a better album than I'm perhaps giving it credit for. However, I listened to it 3 times on the go, as it were, and I did find it kind of a bit aimless and dull until the final 3 tracks, which I thought were really, really strong.
Yeah.
However, I listened to it again this morning, sat here, and it does sound better sitting and taking it in. So this morning, for example, title track and Selfish Giant came into their own a bit more for me than they had when I was on the go. But I still think the final 3 tracks are where the album's at its strongest, and I think Photographs is possibly the best song he's ever written.
Yeah, I'll start in reverse. I strongly agree. Those final 3 tracks are a masterpiece of songwriting and delivery. Fantastic, fantastic way to close an album. It's not often we get an album. I think a lot of albums, certainly the ones we've listened to in recent years, of all artists, even some artists that I really admire, endings just are rushed.
Yeah,
and one thing that Blur actually always did was they always sort of closed on a couple of big numbers, so to speak, or at least they thought you knew that they'd mapped their way to the end. It's just like, well, we'll just put all the good stuff in the first half, and we'll sort of muddle the way on to the closing track. So yeah, no, really, really good. I would throw in You and I think it's You and Me as well.
That's the long track.
Yeah, the long track with some really good instrumental in there as well. Some really good music. I see from the notes it's Brian Eno, so obviously makes sense. I see where you're coming from actually with your first review. It took me 2 or 3 listens, again a bit like Pixies album. It didn't quite click at first. I had to take myself into a space on my own, and sort of think about what this record is trying to do. It's obviously like Lily Allen. It's a very autobiographical record. There's a lot of stuff in here that reflects back on his own life and his own experiences to date, and there's lots of pictures, of where he's been and what sort of life he's in. And of course, I think also his musical career is reflected very much in this as well, particularly his non-blur stuff. It's all here, isn't it? The Marley stuff is here, the opera's here. You know,
it's kind of less intrusive than it's been elsewhere, which is a good thing.
Yes, no cartoons, you know, but it's all there, and it's a great summing up, I think, of the last 10, 15 years of his work. In what is unbelievably his first proper solo album. So I think the more you listen to it, it's a very strong record. I think it has the potential not over to reach, obviously take the Blur fan base with it, which of course has been revitalised in recent years.
Indeed.
But also to reach out to new fans as well. He's very much. It's going to sound cheesy, particularly when you think about what people used to say about Blur in the 90s, and they used to make those comparisons with the Beatles. I think he's very much Lennon and McCartney on this record at different times as well, in terms of his approach to the songs. And I still think he has a great voice. I used to think he had a very annoying voice.
Yeah, there were times during his album where I did think he had a very annoying voice.
I think when we heard him his interview, and he's going, "Oh, it's all there, it's deep Essex," you know, and he's actually got a really nice voice.
Yeah. No, talk like you went away from Damon.
You know, so there we go.
Okie dokie. So we get back to the ladies.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure which. I think this is, again. I think this might be the 6th album from Kelis, who again I suppose is probably best known still for Caught Out There, which was 15 years ago.
Gosh,
unbelievably!
Wow.
And Milkshake, which was 10 years ago now.
That I can't believe.
Yeah. Which had obviously one of the funniest lyrics of all time. And, you know, so thinking, what has this woman been doing since then? It seems she's been doing food since then. So the title of the album is actually irrelevant, because she's got her own range of specialty sauces and is trying to do her own cookery show.
No, this I didn't know. Fantastic.
Saucy and Sweet.
Right.
That's what the cookery show she's trying to get off the ground is called.
Yeah.
But music is the main course here. Yeah, sorry. So, Kelis, food.
Yeah, like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have what she's having. No, it's good. It's good. Again, a good rounded record. Maybe the criticism, maybe we both picked up on the Lily Allen stuff. This does feel like a solid album. Sorry, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's got that feel to it. It opens well. I really like Breakfast.
Yep.
Opening track.
I think it's got a son or daughter speaking at the start.
Yeah. Really nice song. Really enjoyed. Is it Forever Be? And Bless the Telephone. Bit of Larry Sifri.
Yeah.
Hey.
So that's interesting, because obviously that's the sole acoustic number on the thing.
Yeah.
It's very
very well done.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, like it. And again, an album with a strong ending. I thought last couple of tracks, Biscuits and Gravy and Dreamer.
Yeah.
You know, again, really nice sort of well-rounded album. Lots of it's a soul album, but lots of nods to different styles.
Yeah.
You know, which I thought keeps things interesting. So yeah, I'd really recommend this. It's my surprise of the podcast, I think.
Ditto. I love this record.
Yeah.
Really, really love this record.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those kind of albums that comes along in a while, so a bit like you know, maybe the first Macy Gray album or things like that reminds you that you still can make a really good soul record.
Yeah.
You know, with good strong songs, good arrangement, good vocals. And it's the whole album has a kind of blues soul vibe, which just genuinely is hard to resist. So you've got that kind of elements of kind of evokes kind of 70s Curtis Mayfield with kind of horns and funk elements in there, and then you got spatterings of Prince and actually also smatterings of that Macy Gray album as well. So it's a modern soul album that delivers, you know, and it's the songs that are that are dictating the pace and the feel of the album rather than the latest production trend. As you say, gets off to a great start, and then there really isn't a bad track on the album. You know, I love the bass riff and the brass fills on Jerk Ribs.
Yeah.
and kind of the kind of foot tappingness of kind of Friday fish fry and stuff like that. Exactly, yeah. And the whole album's just got a really good vibe to it, and even kind of you could imagine dancing as well. I mean, Cobbler has this kind of almost salsa type vibe to it. You can actually see someone dancing salsa to this track. Strictly Come Dancing, you heard it here first. And as you said, you get the odd moment when it all suddenly goes acoustic.
Yep.
With the Labi Sifri cover, which is a duet with Tunde Adibimpe, who I'm not familiar with. As I said, I think he might have been the producer on the album. Having not really thought about Kelis since kind of Milkshake, and it's always kind of take her or leave her that. Then this is a delight.
She could teach you, but she'd have to charge.
Bumtish. So we finish off with another return, the return of Paul Heaton. What Have We Become?
Yep.
And not only the return of him, but it reunites him with the former Beautiful South collaborator Jackie Abbott.
Yeah, I mean, this is a double header, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So it really is a kind of. I'm sure there are reasons why, but she should have equal billing on the album, really. So essentially, this is his fourth solo album, if you include his Biscuit Boy, Cracker Man outings of many years ago. And funny enough, you made a joke in an email exchange this week that reminded me of this, because obviously when Beautiful South split up, Heaton famously cited musical similarities as the reason this.
Yes.
And this is it's a difficult album really, because I think I wanted to like this album more than I did.
Yeah.
I mean, the opening track reminds me a bit of the Jams, That's Entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny. Current single DIY is kind of perfect Heaton, and although he doesn't sing on it at all.
Yeah, but it's him. Yeah,
it's because
it's a perfect Beautiful South record.
Yeah, it's very arch.
Yeah.
Cracking chorus, and a bit like Lily Allen. The strong point of this record, as has always been the way with Heaton, is lyrically.
Yes.
He has a very he's got a good lyrical style. I mean, on One Man's England, for example, he takes aim at the kind of Little Englanders, and which seems very appropriate in the current climate, having local UK elections and Euro elections, and and polls seem becoming more racist. So you got that kind of thing of the kind of his wit coming through,
and then you have that immediately after What Have We Become, which sort of takes a pot shot at this sort of the Americanization of English culture, which is again well sowed territory for him, but done very well.
Yeah, and so again, I think the album is lyrically strong, and it's great it's great particularly when they're both singing together, because you remember just how well matched their voices are, and from that point of view, I could sit and listen to them both sing forever. However, again, a bit the same with the Lily Allen album for me, although more so in this case. I think the album is let down by the music really badly. Yeah,
it's flabby.
Yeah,
it's not. This is. I mean, let's make no mistake. This is not a classic, The Beautiful South record.
No,
in fact, it's not a Beautiful South record. It bubbles up from time to time, and as you say, where it's strongest, it does sound like a Beautiful South record, and particularly that second track, DIY. It's not musically; it does feel quite tired in places, and I was disappointed overall. When I think about the record, I think about the length of the record as well. It did sort of. There are times where your attention isn't perhaps as engaged as it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, lyrically, it's tight and it's there. Repeat what you said about the collaboration and the chemistry, but just at times it just felt a little bit insipid, and tired and dated. It's sort of It wasn't even as it wasn't even as fresh as some of those previous albums sounded at the time they came out. It sort of harked back to an earlier period of sort of mid to late 80s music of this genre, and it just sounded dated.
Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, Paul. No, sorry, Paul. I am, because otherwise it could be a great record.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, given that you've been even more positive than me for a change on this particular podcast, I think.
Have I?
What would be?
I'd laugh all the way through. I tried to tone down the positivity.
Yeah. What would be your album of the month?
This is a tough call. This is a tougher call than I thought it was going to be, because a few days ago I'd have said Lily Allen as my perfect pop record. However, I've had more time to absorb the likes of the Pixies,
yep.
Damon Albarn, and even despite what I've just said, Paul Heaton, Jackie Abbott record. You know, I'm probably going to change my mind. It's probably going to be Lily Allen at some point, but for the moment I'm going to say Damon Albarn.
For me, it's the Kelis album.
Yes, there you go. Thanks for that.
But yeah,
I agree.
And on that bombshell, see you next time. Oh my God, we're good. You've been listening to the CTTV Music Podcast.